AI filmmaking, it's the Wild West out there, a freaking gold rush. But not all that glitters is gold. Although this video is sponsored by Higgsfield, and owing to how new this space is to me, this is not a review. It's a collaboration I initiated because I asked Higgsfield for help. With that said, the thoughts expressed herein are, as always, absolutely my own. This is only as it should be, and I thank Higgsfield for respecting this approach. Hey everybody, I'm Hugh Brownstone for Three Blind Men and an Elephant, and I will just cut to the chase. After spending hours and hours with Higgsfield, dozens of generations across multiple scenarios and far more time than I anticipated, two things are crystal clear. One, holy crap! The current state of AI rendering borders on magical. I can practically taste bringing a feature-length screenplay to life. I mean, look at this.
Play a lot of Microsoft Flight Simulator, huh?
How can you tell?
Like a guess.
Whoa! Easy, kid. My airplane! I think that's enough for today. The birds.
Want to go back up?
Two. Oy vey, as a screenwriter with directorial and production ambitions and exceptionally low tolerance for futzing, there is simply no way I could or would want to attempt this alone. If anything, playing with Higgsfield's Cinema Studio 2.0, Popcorn, Video Character Swap, Kling 2.6 and 3.0, Nana Banana Pro, each phenomenal in its own way, even going beyond that to create a dedicated ChatGPT for Kling 3.0 prompting and exploring tools outside Higgsfield entirely for, say, more classic storyboarding, has made something very clear to me, and I am delighted that this is a big takeaway. The shortest path from where I am today to where I want to be is not mastering every tool myself. It's recruiting, building, and nurturing a small team of exceptional human collaborators, people who want to be part of the journey I am now absolutely on. People who share the vision of bringing a feature-length screenplay to life exclusively with AI filmmaking tools. People nosebleed more capable than I in domains for which I'm simply not built, that are critical to the success of such an endeavor. People who want this particular script to come to life. Let's get into it. The good news? Well, I just told you, at least in part. The very latest AI filmmaking tools are capable of extraordinary renders. More good news? The rate at which updates are being released across the AI filmmaking landscape, each one almost always leapfrogging everything else in that particular category, has and will continue to dramatically close the gap between where we all are to varying degrees and where we'd ideally like to be. But the bad news? It's not nearly as simple as it looks once you move beyond goblins, Vikings, superheroes, and 3 or 4 second clips. Especially at the beginning of one's journey, most especially for realistic, narrative, feature-length filmmaking. Like I said, awesome renders when they work. The state of workflow, continuity, UI maturity, and multi-shot limitations, those are all big problems. For me anyway, because what do I know? As is video editing in this space, actually. It is still in its infancy compared to word processing or photo editing, two domains I do know intimately and which I do very well. Put differently, AI filmmaking's current probabilistic chaos, the iteration spiral, the lottery ticket, the inability to abort the generating process as soon as one realizes a tiny sequencing error in the text prompt can absolutely ruin the result, the surrender of precision and human creative agency to what feels to me to be an interminable crapshoot, that's just not my jam. I mean, look at this. So close, yet not close at all, if what we're looking at is Zeno's paradox. To reach a destination, you must first cover half the distance to it. After that, you must cover half of the remaining distance, and so on. This process continues infinitely, suggesting that you can never actually reach your destination because there are always more halves to cover. Look at these.
Play a lot of Microsoft Flight Simulator, huh? How did you? Your eyes haven't moved off the artificial horizon. Might want to look around, keep yourself oriented.
A lot of Microsoft Flight Simulator, huh? How did you? Your eyes haven't moved off the artificial horizon. Might want to look around, keep yourself oriented. Runway's yours. Bring her in. I'm crushing it. Don't get ahead of yourself, kid. Stay sharp.
It's gonna be a long drive.
We better be ready.
Spend a lot of time on Microsoft Flight Simulator, huh?
How did you know? You haven't taken your eyes off the artificial horizon. Might want to rethink that. Spend a lot of time on Microsoft Flight Simulator, huh? How did you know? You haven't taken your eyes off the artificial horizon. Might want to rethink that. Spend a lot of time on Microsoft Flight Simulator, huh? How did you know? You haven't taken your eyes off the artificial horizon. Might want to rethink that.
That was awesome. Want to go back up? That was awesome. Want to go back up?
Holy crap!
Which is not to say I won't be investing significantly more time into the project details I'm about to share with you. Because I will. And I will be doing it with Higsfield. Hold that thought. Now, you may be new to this channel, but even those of you who follow the channel closely may not know that I'm actually an option screenwriter, or that I wrote a screenplay over a decade ago called D. It's a family-friendly mashup of Ian Fleming's original Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, the book, illustrated by the incredible John Birmingham. Forget about the movie, even if Roald Dahl wrote it. E.T., after Claudia and I visited Roswell, New Mexico in 2014, and the Amelia Earhart story, which has always fascinated me. The script was a top 10 finalist in Screencraft's family-friendly contest, but that, an option on a later unrelated script, and $6, well, that might buy you a latte. Although, to be fair, that's because I spent the option money years ago. Bottom line, I never did anything with D. Life intervened. It would have cost a fortune to produce, and the odds of a first or second script attracting that kind of budget were slim, and there were other things I wanted to do, but I loved writing it. I love writing all of my scripts. Every few years, I can practically hear the little voice inside my head urging me to return to it, do something with it. So, about a year ago, I paid for a well-known AI filmmaking course. ChatGPT, a large language model, even helped me pick it out. The problem, once again, for me anyway, was that it was a waste. Didn't help me at all. To be fair, it might not have been a waste if I'd had the time, but I've been task-saturated for years, and that is still the case. My second book of photographs, 4 years behind schedule. Anyway, I experienced this very nicely crafted set of YouTube videos as I do all camera manuals, actually. Mountains of information disguised as helpful, but not helpful to someone like me who just wants to get it done and don't have infinite time. I wanted the shortest path to a specific use case, complete with simple, repeatable, editable, bulletproof workflows. just like what I wish most camera menu systems would do. But I couldn't let go of the ambition or the curiosity, so over the past 3 months, I've been revisiting the AI filmmaking space to see if maybe I could take D even this much further. The thing of it is, every time I've watched another AI filmmaking video on YouTube recently, I've had the same two reactions. One, at its best, as I keep saying, whoa, amazing, Vikings, goblins, she-devils, talking dogs, and babies. Yeah, awesome. But two, almost all of those videos are extremely short. I'm not talking scenes, I'm talking clips. 3, it felt like every few weeks, another earth-shattering update would come along, knock all the pieces off the chessboard, and we'd have to start all over again deciding what tools to use. And finally, 4, I watched enough videos all the way through and began to see the shortcomings most creators in most segments gloss over or ignore. Here, character drift, spatial inconsistency, physics inconsistency, style and scene inconsistency, leaden dialogue. Radically evolving yet still highly suboptimal workflows. At least once more with a feeling for how I work, how I think, how I problem solve. Yes, the improvements are real and they're staggering. The Will Smith spaghetti problem is gone long time ago. Lip syncing and inflection without direction is dramatically better than it was 1 point release ago. Holy moly. Automagically creating shot coverage? Even suggested narrative next steps? Incredible. If you don't already know where you want to go next. Otherwise, it's a time suck. But however you slice it, long-form narrative remains complex, and I really hate futzing. But the buzz around Higgsfield has been enormous. And it looked to me just a few weeks ago that Higsfield was already well ahead of where I was and taking on the task of solving what I already suspected then would be the number one issue for me as I've already laid it out and will once again call out continuity in all its forms. After these last few weeks of extensive time with it, here's how I understand Higgsfield now. First, Higgsfield is an aggregator, a one-stop shop for an ever-growing roster of tools from an ever-growing roster of companies. Given how often products leapfrog each other, that flexibility matters. No lock-in. Always, as best as I can tell, up to date with the latest tools and releases. Second, it's a user interface, user experience. It sits between you and tools like Kling, VOC, Dance, Nano, Banana Pro, bringing at least some order to the chaos, although it sometimes introduces its own chaos. For someone like me, all things considered, it's the best entry point I've found thus far, full stop. I've been able to get early access to Kling 3.0, and that has also been a big deal, a clear example of the Higsfield value proposition. Kling 3.0 introduces 15-second clips. Higsfield's Cinema Studio 2 integrates it. That's significant. Even if Cinema Studio 2.0 is limited to 12 seconds, hold that thought too. I had no appreciation for that amount of time because it still seemed so small to me. I still think that way. But I have learned that the average shot length for Hollywood films is in the neighborhood of 5 seconds. So maybe I need to learn to be a little less piggy. Yeah, not happening. It's just not the way I think. But those limits I just shared with you for Kling 3.0 and Cinema Studio 2.0, they apply to multi-shot sequences as well. 12 to 15 seconds max and toto. For someone thinking in scenes, tension, and emotional arc, not tool constraints, that's terribly restrictive. Add to that, say it with me now, iteration loops that you can't cancel as soon as you realize, as I said earlier and do too often, that one has to live with even a minor textual sequencing error as soon as one hits generate or animate. Long render times across multiple tools, across multiple vendors, within and outside of Higsfield. Difficulty navigating backwards, that is just retracing your steps non-destructively. which results in distorted or broken feedback loops. Continuity challenges, UI complexity challenges. I'm repeating myself in part because that's what it feels like inside UIs this complex and rapidly evolving. Not only endless looping, but constantly losing one's place. I do have to say that the introduction of elements in Kling 3.0 may be an inflection point for continuity. It requires pre-production discipline, character Bibles, scenes, set locations. These will all matter more, not less. Now, this is my jam, and it helped, but it is not yet plug-and-play feature filmmaking ready. Once again, at least not for me, not even for the 90-second teaser I'd initially set as my ambition. So this is just a first quick take. It's the beginning of the journey, but I will wrap it up and recap it for today this way. As I said at the outset, AI filmmaking is the Wild West out there. It is a gold rush. Almost everyone can taste the opportunity, including me. But just like any gold rush, all that glitters is not gold. And in the end, irrespective of effort, only a few of us will ever hit real gold, especially right now. So after about 20 hours of serious experimentation, something more important has crystallized for me, more important than the tools themselves, critical as they are. I have no interest in doing a feature-length AI film alone. Not just because I think it's impossible for me right now, but because, for me, it's the wrong way. You know, the biggest films have always required a lot of people, thousands of people in the credits. It really does take a village. Even small films take enormous effort. Compared to a single photograph on the street, it is otherworldly. But not just for technical complexity, but because magic happens when the right people are in a room together, riffing, arguing, evolving, agreeing. That is truly the magic. And I don't see it changing. I don't want it to. It strikes me that the dramatically, otherworldly level of visual and emotional sophistication beyond what we sometimes and increasingly often see in short clips or sequences notwithstanding, AI filmmaking is at the same place as Apple was in the early days when they were still selling kits. Powerful components, immature integration, and those components would get dramatically more powerful with time. The AI filmmaking industry is racing at incredible speed toward the equivalent of the Apple II, the iMac just beyond that, M-Max beyond that. You know the trajectory. I'd say Higsfield is positioned at or near the very front of the pack in a very clever way. For me, crafting a fully independent AI filmmaking workflow right now would be a fool's errand. But that doesn't mean we're headed in the wrong direction. It means we're still early. The very bottom line, this first truly serious foray has convinced me that, one, rendering has crossed a threshold.
Want to go back up?
2, workflow and long-form narrative continuity are still evolving, and they need to. 3, collaboration remains essential. And 4, D is not producible by me alone today. Not even close. Not even a 90-second teaser. And you know what? It needs a rewrite anyway. I look forward to that because 10 or 12 years later, it doesn't look like the same script to me, and I'm certainly not the same man. But I do have a plan for the next 24 months. No hype, no grandiosity, just this. And now I will pivot to what is most important of all. An invitation. If you're, say, an Unreal technical director, an AI shot specialist, an editor who understands narrative pacing, someone who has cracked long-form AI filmmaking workflow, or someone with some other kind of expertise I haven't identified yet and therefore don't understand. If you think everything I've laid out is solvable now, if the idea of a magical plane named D, found abandoned in the Sonoran Desert by a family intrigues you, or if I can contribute to what you're building, please reach out. Let's talk. I'd like that. Yeah.
kid.
Really?
Really?